much more does the Broncos defense need to do? That is the question being asked today across Broncos country. Hello, everyone. Welcome inside Upon Further Review with B-Marsh and Michael, alongside my partner, Brandon Marshall. I am Michael Spencer. Glad to have you with us. Again, we wish it were under better circumstances. The Broncos coming off a 15-10 loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. B-Marsh, you're shaking your head, man. I seriously, it's like a carbon copy of what happened in Kansas City the other day. I just don't know what else this Broncos defense needs to do.
I mean, and all this seems so all too familiar. You know, it seems all too familiar. It's been like this, you know, towards the end of my career, even when we won the Super Bowl, right? But we had a competent offense, though. We had playmakers. And this team has playmakers, right? But we had the sheriff leading us, so we would score when we needed to score. At this point in time, these guys, they don't score when they need to score. The fact that, you know, the Broncos defense continues to get you the ball back, right, holds the other team to, 30% on third down. They're getting off the field. They're getting you the ball back. It's a real issue.
Yeah. And it continues to be the same issue game after game, seemingly, and year after year. Let's get into today's show, and we will start, as always, with what's on B-Marsh's mind. What's on B-Marsh's mind? Presented by First Bank, banking for good. Mr. Marshall, I turn it over to you. Take it away.
Well, you know, I was thinking earlier, you know, and this is probably the most competitive I've seen the Broncos week in and week out in a long time, maybe since 2016, you know, when we went 9-7. So I think, Mike, I think it's only right that you keep Vic. You know, I was thinking about the future of this team and the future of, you know, maybe are we switching head coaches or are we making tweaks to the front office or to the coaching staff or to the players? And honestly, I think the nucleus of players we have is really good. I think we're just missing one or two pieces. And I think you keep the head coach, Vic Fangio, because I feel like he's got the team going on the proper trajectory, right? You get rid of Pat Shermer. You get a new offensive coordinator, right? And you get a new quarterback if you can, right? If you can't get a new quarterback, you do that. Maybe you keep Teddy as a backup if you can, or maybe continue to keep Drew Lock as a backup and trying to develop him. But I think Vic has earned one more year.
You know what's crazy, Brandon? There are a lot of people who are going to disagree with you on that point. I'm not one of them, though. I actually agree with you because I think that when you look at what Vic is doing on the defensive side of the ball, those guys are absolutely balling. And when I look at the totality of this team, they haven't quit, right? And there have been opportunities for them to quit. There have been opportunities for them to get frustrated both on offense and on defense. But I think that you're right. This is the most competitive they have been late in the season since 2016. And I think there is something to be said for that. Now, does Vic Fangio need to work on his game management? Yes. Did he hurt his team late in the first half yesterday by not totally running out the clock and giving Cincinnati some time to kick field goal after Brandon McManus missed the field goal? Yes, absolutely. The Broncos should have been the last team to take a snap in that first half yesterday. They should have run the ball on 3rd and 1 and then call the timeout as the clock wound down, assuming that Cincinnati wasn't going to use their timeout. However, I think those things are correctable, but I'm with you. I think at this point, given what Vic has done, especially on the defensive side of the football, specifically on the defensive side of the football, you fire Pat Shermer, you try and get a new quarterback, and you bring Vic back and you run it back with basically the same team, sans maybe the quarterback position.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? I think maybe Vic needs to get an advisor.
Yes.
Like a specific advisor to help him with game management, with the clock management, because he's so used to looking at this thing for so many years just from a defensive perspective, and he just worried about the defense or, you know, what happened last drive, what can I improve on as far as play calling goes, what, you know, and I think he's almost like this. He has blinders on, you know, so he needs an advisor to say, yo, Vic, I think we need to do this right here. Somebody in his ear. Right, because right now he doesn't have that. It doesn't seem like it, and he seemed like he's reverting back to that old, you know, I'm just worried about the defense mindset. So somebody help Vic out, please. Hire an assistant or something close to you that can help you with this clock management, because that is part of your job as the head coach. You have to put your team in a position to win.
Yeah, but I don't think we can ignore what they are doing on the defensive side of the football. And yesterday, Joe Burrow goes 15 of 22, hold him to 157 yards. Outside of, 56 of those 157 came on one play. the touchdown to Tyler Boyd. And it's not like this is an anomaly, Brandon, because not only do they shut down the passing game of the Bengals, they hold Joe Mixon to just 58 yards. He was averaging 79.7 yards per game coming into yesterday's game. And in the previous games where been held under 65 yards, the Bengals had lost all of them. So they looked at what this Bengals team did well and absolutely took it away. And this is not the first time. You go back to that game in Kansas City a couple of weeks ago where they hold Patrick Mahomes to a passer rating of 57.3. He goes 15 of 29, 184 yards, no touchdowns, just the third time this season he's been held without a touchdown pass. They are balling on the defensive side of the football, and it is in large part because of Vic Fangio. So when you look at him, I don't think you can discount what he's doing on the defensive side of the football.
You can't. I mean, this is, I know we spoke about potentially being no-fly zone 2.0, but I'm gonna go ahead and call it the great value no-fly zone. It's almost the real thing, but not quite the real thing. But see, this is, holding Patrick Mahomes to 184 yards, holding Joe Burrow essentially to 100 yards outside of that, the one long pass that beat you. This defense is playing extremely well. And going back to Vic Fangio, I think he's developing defensive players. Jonathan Cooper, he's developing these guys. We all know what we all say defense wins championships. Tampa Bay last year, they scored a lot of points, but they shut Mahomes down. The defense truly won the game for the Bucs last year, man. So I think you have to keep them, and I know it's not sexy, right? It's not the sexy thing to do. People want new and exciting and whatever, but we need something innovative, right? And I don't think we need to get rid of Vic Fangio. I just think we need a more innovative offensive coordinator, which it feels like the Broncos have never had since Adam Gase. I feel like since Adam Gase left, the offensive coordinators have just been kind of run West Coast offense, play, but this league is going towards the more exciting and more innovative type of offenses.
What I don't understand is why Vic Fangio is letting Pat Shurmur drag him down in this. Like, I don't get that. I don't understand why he is doing that with Pat and why he's doing it with Tom McMahon too, to a lesser degree. But I mean, how many times have we sat here and talked about special teams issues, and Vic refuses to make changes? And there's something to be said for loyalty, but at the same time, you can't have blind loyalty to these guys. And Vic may never get another head coaching job. Yeah. He waited 30 plus years to get his first head coaching job.
This is it.
In the NFL. He's not going to get another one if he gets fired here in Denver.
This is it. So, look, the chips are all in, I guess, when he picked Teddy over Drew, because he didn't want a project like, I got to, keep my job or fight for my job. So I'm going to throw in more of a sure thing. But, all I can think about with Shurmur and the special teams coach, McMahon, I just think it's loyalty, like you said. He's loyal to those guys. Maybe he sees how hard they work, and maybe he sees, how passionate they are about their position, and he believes in them, maybe to a fault, but he believes in them. So, or maybe he's like, well, you know what, I'll just wait till after the season. I don't want to do anything right now, because who else will take over?
Well, and I also think he knows he's on the hook for Pat Shurmur, because he was the one that got rid of Rich Gangarello when they had that good run toward the end of the season with Drew Lock in 2019. And then he gets rid of Rich Gangarello and brings in Pat Shurmur. So Shurmur's his guy. And as much as you almost can compare it to Elway and drafting quarterbacks, right? And as much as Elway couldn't find a quarterback, maybe Vic can't find an offensive coordinator. Yeah. And maybe, granted, it's only been two and Elway had more swings and misses, but maybe it's a similar situation. And I think Vic feels responsible that he brought in Pat Shurmur, and Pat Shurmur was his guy. And if he fires Pat Shurmur, what does that say about his inability to find an offensive coordinator?
Yeah, but look, it's sink or swim.
Yeah.
It's sink or swim. It depends on, do you want to go down with a sinking ship, or do you want to save yourself, right? Save yourself, get rid of the offensive coordinator, try to find somebody new, more innovative, more exciting, who's going to challenge the defense. I feel like our offense doesn't challenge the defense. Just from the naked eye looking at it, it doesn't look too hard to defend or to game plan for. To be honest with you, now there's teams where when we play Andy Reid, every year we play Andy Reid. It's tough. We got a game plan for Andy Reid. It's a tough game, right? We know, okay, well, they can do this, they can do this. Out of this formation, they do 5 things out of this formation. You'll never know, and it's just tough. But the Broncos offense just looks very, very simple, very rudimentary, I'll say. So I think something has to change on that front. But I think that's the change we need to make, that and quarterback.
Yeah. I think it's going to be wild to see how Broncos country reacts if they do indeed bring back Vic Fangio. And if I'm George Payton, I tell Vic, hey, look, man, I'm willing to bring you back, but you got to change your offensive coordinator. And you've got to do a better job of coaching your coaches moving forward, because what we're doing on the offensive side of the football right now is not working. And what Vic is doing on the defensive side of the football, to his credit, he's doing without the two guys who started at inside linebacker this year. He was without Mont Jones yesterday, one of his defensive linemen. He was without Kenny Young, who they brought in to replace the inside linebackers who got hurt. And yet they still held the Bengals to their lowest offensive output of the season in just 15 points.
Look, no Von Miller.
Right. And they traded away Von Miller, for crying out loud.
No Von, and the defense essentially is still as good, if not better, than it was.
Yeah.
When Von was on the team, right? So man, kudos to Vic. Shout out to Vic. Like I said, I'm in love with this game. I wish I had a chance to play for him one year to kind of, get the knowledge or pick his brain and see, what kind of coverages he likes to run and why, and during different situations. And that's kind of what I did when I was with, Jack Del Rio and Wade Phillips and stuff like that. But I want to be able to pick his brain, but, it didn't happen. So, just from watching from afar, I can tell, this guy's game plans and how they coach up defense is phenomenal, outstanding. But, without an offense, what can we do?
Yeah, it's wild because they're playing championship level defense and they're playing sub 500 level offense. And that's why their record is what it is right now. Hey, when we come back, given what happened yesterday, what should the Broncos do with Teddy Bridgewater, not just for this coming game against the Raiders, but for the rest of the season? And what did we learn from Drew Lock's performance yesterday, and how might it affect his future with this franchise moving forward? We will discuss all that and more next, right here on Upon Further Review with B-Marsh and Michael, presented by WynnBET. Welcome back inside Upon Further Review with B-Marsh and Michael, presented by WynnBET. Glad to have you with us here on Monday, December the 20th, getting close to Christmas time, holiday season here in Denver. And right now the Broncos offense is going to get a lump of coal for their gift from jolly old St. Nick. Brandon, let's talk about this Broncos offense. I want to start with Teddy Bridgewater, and obviously our thoughts and prayers go out to Teddy in his recovery. The good news is, and we'll find out more from Vic Fangio here in the next hour or two about his status. And by the time this comes out, we will know a little bit more. But Teddy had movement in his extremities last night, stayed at a local hospital, did clear kind of all of his tests. But Brandon, I think that there is no way that Teddy Bridgewater should start against the Las Vegas Raiders on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And two, I think that the Broncos should have a legit conversation about shutting Teddy Bridgewater down for the rest of the season for a couple different reasons. One, let's be honest, this team has a 5% chance of making the playoffs. They're not making the playoffs, okay? I think everybody can agree on that. With yesterday's loss, that window, in my mind at least, has closed, if not mathematically, essentially and realistically, it is closed. The other thing, Brandon, if the NFL is serious about head injuries, this is Teddy's second head injury. Yeah. And it hasn't officially been diagnosed as a concussion. I think that obviously it will be. But this is the second time this season that he has had a very serious head injury. And I think that it would be foolish of the Broncos to try and get him to come back and play. And I think that Teddy will probably want to, but I think that they've got to consider his safety in this regard. And I also think it might be in the best interest of the franchise to play Drew Lock and maybe even play Brett down the stretch here in these final three games, given that, like I said, their window for the playoffs hasn't mathematically been closed, but realistically it has been.
So it sounds like to me you're saying that when you say it's better for the franchise, right, to play Drew Lock, it sounds like to me that there's still hope that he may be the franchise quarterback of the future.
Is there?
I think that ship has sailed.
You think that ship has sailed? Okay.
I think the ship has sailed. I think playing Drew Lock gives the fans hope, right? Because let's say he plays well. Let's say he rips it the last 3 weeks. What do? Do you say, okay, we're going to ride with Drew Lock one more time? Or do you say, all right, you know what? We know who he is, right? And so Teddy, I get it because you're speaking from a place of concern, right? And I think that's needed because, you know, he has had 2 separate serious head injuries, right? And I guess you got to ask, you know, are they playing this? Is it because he's a quarterback or they're doing the same thing? Will they do the same thing for another player? No, it's because he's a quarterback, right? Yeah. But I don't think it's in the best interest of the franchise to play Drew Lock because I think you know who he is at this point. Playing him, I think it don't confuses things, right? So now, are they going to start ripping over Drew Lock? No, they're not. They're not going to do that. But I think putting Drew Lock in, all right, and I get it. Teddy should relax this week, okay? But moving forward, I think it'll just confuse everything because you know how Broncos country is.
I know how Broncos country is.
Yeah.
Do you get a better sense of Drew Lock and whether or not he can be a serviceable backup?
Okay.
If you play him the rest of the season, I don't think you're playing Drew Lock with the hope that he will go in and be your starting quarterback in 2022. I think if they're doing that, then they're blind because I don't think that he certainly has not proven that. He beat out Teddy Bridgewater in the preseason, and he has shown you nothing as a backup to make you think that he could be your starting quarterback moving forward. But is there still an opportunity, because he's still got 1 year left on his contract after this, is there still an opportunity to find out whether or not he can be your backup quarterback moving forward and heading into the 2020 season? Or do you need to totally revamp that room?
Actually, I like that because it could be more like a, you know, I'm not saying he's Case Keenum or Chase Daniels, but maybe like that type of situation where, okay, you know, if our guy goes down, you know, we know that he can step in, or like a Nick Foles situation, right? We know he can step in and play well. So if you're speaking from that place, I agree. Okay, then you play him to really see who he is, right? I think we know who he is, but hopefully, you know, I think we all have hope, you know, to I think we all have hope because of his arm talent. But at the end of the day, we know who he is. But, you know, as far as a serviceable backup, is he the guy? Is he the guy for the job? So I guess we'll find out this Sunday against the Raiders.
Because I actually thought, Brandon, that Drew played decent yesterday. Yeah, I thought that he played better than he has in the relief stints that we have seen earlier this season. That gives me hope, and maybe I'm just trying to find some ray of hope in this season that has now basically been lost. That gives me hope that maybe he can be a serviceable backup moving forward. I have no hope that he can be your starting quarterback moving forward. But I feel like he is learning some things, right? And maybe there's some progress there.
I hope so. You know, that, I mean, look, at the end of the day, film doesn't lie. So we'll find out on Sunday if he's really learned some things. Now he has, you know, like last year, he had a great game against the Texans, right? He killed it. I thought that was last year, that was 2019.
That was 2 years ago. Yeah.
So that game made everybody think, oh my God, this is the guy. This is who we want to see. But the problem is when it comes to potential, right? You know, I know we're saying, oh, what he can be, what he may be, but sometimes you got to ask yourself, all right, man, he may not ever get there. He may not ever reach all of his potential. Philip Lindsay even said in the media when he left the Broncos, he said, yo, Drew Lock has a lot of things to figure out mentally, right? And that's the issue, okay? Because you don't want that for your quarterback. Your quarterback is almost supposed to be one of the more headstrong individuals on the team because he can shoulder all the criticism. He can shoulder the burden of leading the team. He can shoulder everything that comes with being a quarterback. And I don't think Drew Lock can. Now, Teddy can shoulder it, which is why he's been the starting quarterback. Now, is he going to lead the team to a Super Bowl? No, but he can shoulder that responsibility and everything that comes with being a quarterback. Drew Lock, I don't think he's that mature yet. You know, so I'm hoping maybe he gets there, but I don't really see it.
I am starting to see signs, and granted, I'm looking for them, right? Like I'm looking for a needle in a haystack, but I will fully admit that. But I am starting to see signs that he is kind of turning the corner in that regard. You think back to when he came in that game against Baltimore earlier this year, and what did he say after the game? It was, woe is me because I don't get enough reps in practice, and it's really hard to come in and be a backup quarterback and blah, 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 blah. You go back to yesterday, and he's talking about Cortland Sutton and the pass that went off his hands on 3rd and 13. Hey, look, I got to make a better play there. You know, I didn't hear the excuses from Drew, and that at least gives me hope. I think that he acknowledged that he made a mistake on the fumble. I don't know who else he was going to pin that on. You know what I mean? But like the equipment staff, my gloves weren't properly lubricated or whatever.
First of all, That was a give read. The DN was sitting right there. So on that play, okay, when you're doing the zone read, he's staring dead at the DN. Now, if the DN crashes down for the dive, you keep. If he sits there, you give it to the running back. And the DN literally sat there. I don't know if he thought he was Taysom Hill or something. He thought he was somebody who got some sauce. He doesn't have it, okay? And he tried to pull it and get. Oh my God! I mean, that was crazy. That was a crazy play, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole thing was wild. And the down by contact, the fact that like that was considered down by contact and not allowed to continue, and then would have been a fumble and Broncos get the ball 1st and 10. But anyway, I digress. But I think that there are signs there that Drew is slowly turning the corner. Again, I don't think he's ready to be a starting quarterback, but I do see signs that his maturity level is changing, and that he can come in and at least give you a chance to win. And yesterday he did that. And I'm not saying that his throws were dimes, because they weren't. I thought the touchdown to Tim Patrick was a better play by Tim Patrick than it was anything else, because I thought that ball should have been intercepted. But Tim went obviously and made a great grab. But Drew gave you a chance to win. And the other thing that I think you saw yesterday was that when Drew came in, things opened up in the running game, because they knew the Bengals defense knew that they had to respect Drew's ability to pass the ball, which they didn't have to do with Teddy. The Broncos only ran the ball for 42 yards in the first half. In the second half, they ran it for 91 yards. I think that was a product of two things. I think they made a concerted effort to run the football more, knowing that Drew was in, and knowing that that was how you were going to play the best football with Drew Lock in at quarterback. But I also think that Cincinnati had to respect the passing game a little bit more, and that opened things up for the running game.
Yeah, so I think, the Broncos, coordinators and coaches, they don't believe in Drew enough to just let him go ahead and rip it, okay? Because they know, how careless he could be with the football.
Yeah, we've seen what happens when he rips it.
Right. So, of course, let him, you got to establish a run game with him. I mean, that's the offense anyway, right? That's the offense anyway. But now
it should be, except they threw the ball 20 times in the first half and only ran the ball 14 times.
Right, exactly. They should have reversed it. They should have reversed it, because it was a close game. This was a defensive battle the whole game. Right, it was a defensive battle. They could have ran the ball you got two studs back there, horses, right? But see, they trust Teddy more to throw it than they do Drew, and so that's why they say, okay, in the second half, let's run it. Let's get it going on the ground a little more to open it up. If they bring us a safety down the box, which each defensive coordinator should against the Broncos, I would bring 8-9 box, because that's what they do, right?
Because you're not worried about Teddy's deep ball.
I'm not worried about it, right? You're gonna have to beat me. Teddy, you have to show me that you can beat me with arm. Then, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll play a shell coverage more like a cover 4 or cover 2. But if not, I'm gonna man him up or play cover 3, drop a safety down in the box, and I'm gonna stop the run. So that opens things up for Drew, though. If he can let it go and he can hit a receiver accurately, it opens things up for Drew. But I didn't think he played bad either.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm trying to find some hope. I'm trying to find a ray of light here. We'll see what happens moving forward. Let's jump into our report card. Today's report card brought to you by Flock Homes. Smarter rental property ownership starts here. Visit flockhomes.com to learn more. Professor Marshall, rough day to hand out grades. Who are you handing out grades to?
Well, I'm gonna give the defense a B. The defense, they played well. They held Joe Burrow to 150 yards passing. They got off the field. They held him to 4 for 13 on third down, 0 for 2 in the red zone. They played extremely well. If not, they would have got an A if it wasn't for that big play that they gave up to lose the football game. They would have got an A because they shut everything down except that play. And Tyler Boyd, it was a sneaky kind of trick play where he kind of just went across the formation. Maybe a zone player didn't see him or didn't react properly. And that's what, did him in at the end of the day. So they get a B.
Yeah, I'm going to give the offense a C for their performance yesterday. It was simply not good enough. I don't hate if you want to give them a D or an F. Like I said, I'm trying to find a light. Bring positivity here. It's the holiday season. Crying out loud. I'll give the offense a C for their performance. Forget it. Let's give them a D. We'll give them a D for their performance yesterday. It was
all good.
D done, like the Broncos playoff chances. Done. All right, we got to take another timeout. Coming up, we will go around the league, tell you which team surprised us this week. I have a feeling we might be visiting Detroit in our next segment. Plus, we'll tell you what tonight's game might tell us about the Raiders moving forward and how that will impact Sunday's game in Vegas when the Broncos pay a visit to Sin City. All that and more coming up next right here on Upon Further Review with B-Marsh and Michael, presented by WynnBET. Back inside Upon Further Review with B-Marsh and Michael, presented by WynnBET. Glad to have you with us as we wrap up today's episode. And let's start by going around the league. Around the league presented by Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on their most exciting lineup ever. Shop nissanusa.com. And I'm going to drive that Nissan right to the Motor City, Motown. How about the Detroit Lions with a massive, massive upset win over the Cardinals yesterday? That one wasn't even close. It was 17-0 at halftime. I don't know what's going on with the Cardinals, if they were still licking their wounds from that loss to the Rams. I think they rolled into Detroit thinking that they were just going to roll right over the Lions, and then the Lions gave them something. And I love that for the Lions. I'm a huge Dan Campbell fan. I love what he is doing there. It was the first time in NFL history that a team with one win or fewer beat a team with 10 or more wins. And so I absolutely love that for the city of Detroit. I love the energy inside that locker room. Hey man, I hope the Lions win out. I really do. But shout out to the Lions yesterday for what they did beating the Cardinals.
Yeah, I can't believe that. I'm gonna be honest with you.
No, that was wild.
As a potential number one seed, you go into a team that is over. Not over, they won, but essentially the worst team in the NFL, and you get blown out. Laid an egg is an understatement. You have Kyler Murray, you have all the crazy weapons. I don't know what happened. Cliff Kingsbury, Vance Joseph. It's not good enough. You can't let what happened last week seep over to the new week. That looks terrible. Now we're questioning. Now we're looking at you. You know, saying, okay, what type of team is this? You know, is this really the front runner for the NFC? Are they for real or are they not? You know, so now we kind of looking at them sideways. So I'm with you on that. But I'm going to go ahead and talk about how we finally found Tom Brady's kryptonite. Well, actually, you know what? It was probably the Giants back in the day because he clearly couldn't beat the Giants in the Super Bowl for anything to save his life. But right now it's the Saints in the regular season. They held Tom Brady to a goose egg, which hasn't been happening in 255 starts, right? Was it 15 years ago?
Yeah.
And it's crazy that I'm like, yo, with all those weapons, and I know Chris Godwin got hurt, Mike Evans had some injury issues, but to still be held to 0 points, Brady can't do anything. And apparently he said some crazy stuff to the coach. Is that what the word on the street is? Apparently they said he walked over to the coach of the Saints and told him to go F himself. So, you know, they say he's a sore loser. He is, you know, he's Tom Brady. He's just so, you know, the Saints. He can't. I don't know what he could do when it comes to the Saints because the Saints has his number.
It's wild that as good as Tom Brady is, and we're talking about a 4-game sample size since he went to Tampa Bay, but that the Saints of all teams are the ones who have the hex on him. And I don't get it. It's crazy. I love it, but I just don't get it. Was there ever a team for you, B-Marsh, that was like that, or that like you just hated playing against?
The Colts. I don't know what it was. I hated playing the Colts, and not that they were this amazing team, but I feel like I might have a losing record or maybe a 500 record with the Colts. I mean, we beat them in 16. We lost to them in 15. We lost them in the playoffs in 14 or 14 season, 15 playoffs. You know, but then I beat them in 14. It's tough. The Colts, I feel like it was just back and forth. I don't know what it was about playing the Colts or playing in Indy. I don't think I've ever won in Indy.
So was that in your head? Did you realize that as a player? Like, hey man, this team, they got something.
Yeah, at the end, like, well, I want to say when in 2015, I think we were undefeated. That was our first loss. We had beat the Packers on Sunday Night Football. We went into Lucas Oil to play Andrew Luck and the Colts, and we lost. And I'm like, yo, why can't we beat? What is it about these Colts? You know, I don't know what it is, but you know, it's crazy because when you look at the Saints, right, and you look at the rest of the teams in the league, Tom Brady kills everybody else. Mm-hmm. You would think that everybody would just lock in on the Saints game plan. Granted, they might not have the same secondary or pass rushers as the Saints, but just lock in on the game plan and see, okay, look, well, this is what they like to do. Let's emulate the same thing. But, you know, defensive coordinators have pride. I'm going to run my defense. Da, da, da. Look, hey, I don't know what it is. Go ahead and watch the Saints tape over the past 2 years because they have Tom Brady's number.
Yeah, whatever they're doing it right. There's no doubt about that. All right, let's jump into our sneak peek. Today's sneak peek brought to you by UC Health. With personalized locations across Colorado, UC Health is here for you. No matter where your story takes you, UC Health, live extraordinary. B-Marsh, a really fascinating game coming up next week with the Broncos and the Raiders. Of course, the Raiders still have to play tonight in Cleveland. And I think we're going to find out a lot about this Raiders team based on how they play tonight. I guess it's technically this afternoon, a 3:00 start Mountain Time. But this is a team I'm interested to see what do the Raiders do, because they've even got a less % chance of making the playoffs than the Broncos do at this point. Do they just roll over and let Cleveland, and it looks like Nick Mullins is going to be the starting quarterback in that game, do they just let the Browns roll over them, or do we see some fight out of the Raiders tonight? And I think what we see tonight is going to be indicative of what we see next weekend when the Broncos pay a visit to Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, because if they lose tonight, it's going to be a lot of changes. I can see, I mean, obviously they don't have a head coach now, they have an interim, but, you know, maybe Derek Carr's looking at, you know, potentially in there or certain players or certain pieces. So they better be competitive tonight. And luckily, I think the Browns got the NFL. They kind of gave the Browns some slack. They
Absolutely.
If they were going to play on Saturday, they essentially would have been playing the second, third, or practice squad guys, to be honest with you. And the Raiders probably would have rolled over them. They got a break. The league bailed them out. And so we'll see what happens. You know, they might not still have all their guys back, but we'll see, man. But all I know is the Raiders, if they don't get it done tonight, they might lay an egg again next week. So we'll see about that.
Yeah, I actually think the Raiders will win tonight. Yeah. I think that it's interesting what the NFL did, because they're clearly trying to help out the Browns. And it may not even work, because at the time of this taping, Kevin Stefanski still hasn't tested out a COVID protocol. Baker Mayfield still hasn't tested out a protocol. And neither is Keenum. So it looked like Nick Mullins is going to be the starting quarterback there. And the line on this thing has been nuts because it opened up the the Browns were like 6.5 point favorites. Then it swung all the way to the Raiders being like 4 point favorites. And now it's back. Last night it was Browns were 3 point favorites, and now they're like 1 point favorites. But I think this is going to be a really interesting game. And I think the mindset of the Raiders is going to tell you a lot. And don't forget, this is a Raiders team that hung 34 on the Broncos earlier in the season.
Which is nuts, okay? As far as the Vic Fangio, and this is a top 5 defense we're talking about in the Denver Broncos, or top 10. I'm not sure the numbers right now, but you know, for them to hang 34 on those guys, right? Which I'm not sure too many teams that's put up 34 on the Broncos defense. It will not happen again this time, because the Broncos defense, I feel like they're hitting a stride differently right now. It's kind of late in the season, but they're hitting it. So I don't see them, putting up that many, points or that many yards on the Broncos.
I also think that as much as we're talking about the Raiders and what are we going to get out of the Raiders, I think the same question can be asked, what are we going to get out of the Broncos, right? They're saying all the right things. They're saying, hey, look, mathematically, we're still in it, and we're going to continue to play hard and try and push for the postseason no matter what. Mentally, that's a whole different ball game, knowing that you've got 3 games left and that you're probably not going to make the playoffs. And if you're without your starting quarterback, how do they rally around Drew Lock?
So my question to you is this, right? So I just got an alert that he was released from the hospital. Okay, it's Monday. They play Sunday, correct?
Yes.
So if he passes,
no.
What do they play? No, you said no.
No, I'm telling you no. You don't even have to ask the question.
So okay, cool. As Michael Spencer says, no. But if you're a Vic Fangio fighting for your job, and these people probably don't really care about the players like that anyway. We're just being honest, right? But that's a different conversation. If you're the head coach, right? Do you put him in trying to save your job? Or do you say, you know what, I'm gonna try Drew Lock? If you put yourself in his shoes.
Okay, let me turn the tables here. I would say no. That's me, and I'm not in Vic Fangio's shoes, and I'm not fighting for my job. Let me ask you this. As a former player, you're in that locker room. You just saw what happened to Teddy Bridgewater. You know that the NFL is allegedly taking head issues seriously. Allegedly. I was going to say very seriously, but I stopped myself.
Yeah.
What message does that send to you if they send Teddy Bridgewater back out there? Because keep in mind, he's got a pass concussion protocol. He's probably not going to practice on Wednesday or Thursday.
No, not at all. No, he probably won't practice until Friday. But from a player standpoint, we get both sides of the coin. Okay, I'm going to understand, and I'm going to ask him like, "Yo, are you good?" bro, are you sure you're good? And if he says, yeah, B, I'm good. I promise I'm fine. Then I'll trust his judgment. If he says he's okay, right? Now, kind of like iffy or still not, then okay, all right, well, let's leave him out. He was just in the hospital, but I'm gonna trust Teddy's word. If he tells me he's good, I'm like, you sure you're good? He's like, I'm good, B. I was like, okay. Then I'm like, okay, all right. When he said he's good, He's good. Hey, let's go out there.
How many players have you ever asked in your life, hey, are you good? And they tell you the truth.
Exactly.
They all lie. Come on now.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Players tell each other the truth. Okay.
All right.
We are not telling the coach or the trainer, well, we might tell the trainer the truth because if we really can't go, we're just gonna be like, yo, Greek, I can't go. Mm-hmm. But if we're trying to play the game, we'll tell the trainers one thing and the coach one thing, like, okay, cool. But to our homies, like, yo, I ain't gonna lie, man, I'm hurt. I'm hurt. But they're trying to rush me back. Which they do all the time. So you'll be honest with your boys, though, but maybe not the front office.
I think it would be a terrible, terrible look for the Broncos and for Vic Fangio if they tried to rush Teddy Bridgewater back. Now, would I be surprised? No, but I think it would be an awful, awful look.
All right, let's go, Drew Lock. Let's see what he got, dude.
That makes it a really interesting week, right? And how that progresses. And I think if you're Vic, you're going to play that in your favor in terms of pushing it right up to the deadline before you got to make a decision on who's going to be your quarterback. And you're going to slow play that all week, if for no other reason than to give the Raiders something else to game plan about. But I think it would be a really, really terrible look if the Broncos rushed Teddy Bridgewater back.
If Drew goes and sticks it up, do you cut him after this year? Do you just say, you know what, we're going to move on?
No. I think you keep him as your backup, depending upon what you do with your starter. And obviously the hope would be that you're going out, you're trading for Russell Wilson. I don't know that that's a reality. I don't know. We're going to find out a lot about George Paton in this and whether or not he's willing to give up first-round picks. And I don't know that that's necessarily the smartest move, considering how well his draft class has played.
Yeah, but, give him up. Give him up. To get a Russell or Aaron Rodgers, give him up.
Okay. All right. We're gonna save that conversation for another day because we're gonna have plenty of quarterback talk about the Broncos as the weeks go on here in Broncos country, and as we find out that they're indeed not going to the playoffs, and then we get closer to the draft. For now, though, we got to wrap up. That is going to do it for this edition of Upon Further Review with B-Marsh and Michael, presented by WinBet. For my partner Brandon Marshall and all of us here at CBS4, I'm Michael Spencer. Thanks so much for logging on. We will catch you next week after the Broncos visit the Raiders in Vegas. Have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you next week.